Hi, everybody. I've really been working on my Julie voice, but it's not happening. So, this session, called Getting into the Head of the Graphic Recorder, is really for all of us. It gives us a chance to really see different styles, how everyone works, and to ask the questions that you always want to be able to ask. We all kind of live in our own little bubbles in far-off places, and I know for me, one of the best parts of coming here is being able to actually watch different recorders, all who have different styles, pick their brains a little bit and see how I can take their little nuggets and put that into what I do. So, we are having Sophia Liang. Sophia, can you stand up? Tim Hammonds, Donatella and Renata, and Kelvy, who all have very distinctly different styles. And we're hoping that we can actually showcase the different ways that you can work, as I said, and just to hear from them what their process is and how they kind of do what they do. So, they are going to exit the room, and they're going to stay out there in their little green room. And one by one, well, each of them is going to come into the room. We have a 6-minute TED Talk that each is going to record separately so that you can really sit and just watch each one create their visual. They'll give us a little run through for a minute or two. We'll do that 4 times over. So we're going to have Sophia's doing on her own. We have Tim, who's going to be working on an iPad. Donatella and Renata are working in tandem. And then Kelvy will wrap the whole thing up. And then we're all going to sit together here and have a little chat. It's your opportunity to really pick their brains. For me, it's the technical stuff, the questions that we always want to ask that you just don't get a chance to ask. It's really your opportunity to do that. So I hope that you will all participate.
One of the things that define a TEDster is you've taken your passion and you've turned it into stewardship. You actually put action to the issues you care about. But what you're going to find eventually is you may need to actually get elected officials to help you out. So how do you do that? One of the things I should probably tell you is I worked for the Discovery Channel early in my career, and that sort of worked my framework. So when you start to think about politicians, you got to realize these are strange creatures. Other than the fact that they can't tell directions and have very strange breeding habits, how do you actually work with these things? What we need to understand is what drives the political creature. And there are 2 things that are primary in a politician's heart. One is reputation and influence. These are the primary tools by which a politician can do his job. The second one, unlike most animals, which is survival of the species, this is preservation of self. Now, you may think it's money, but that's actually sort of a proxy to what I can do to preserve myself. Now, the challenge with you moving your issue forward is these animals are getting broadcast to all the time. So what doesn't work in terms of getting your issue to be important? You can send them an email. Well, unfortunately, I've got so many Viagra ads coming at me, your email is lost. It doesn't matter, it's spam. How about you get on the phone? Well, chances are I've got a droid who's picking up the phone. Yes, they called and they said they didn't like it. That doesn't move. Face-to-face would work, but it's hard to set it up. It's hard to get the context and actually get the communication to work. Yes, contributions actually do make a difference, and they set a context for having a conversation, but it takes some time to build up. So what actually works? And the answer is rather strange. It's a letter. We live in a digital world, but we're fairly analog creatures. Letters actually work. Even the top dog himself takes time every day to read 10 letters that are picked out by staff. I can tell you that every official that I've ever worked with will tell you about the letters they get and what they mean. So how are you going to write your letter? First of all, you're going to pick up an analog device, a pen. I know these are tough, and you may have a hard time getting your hand bent around it. But this is actually critical, and it is critical that you actually handwrite your letter. It is so novel to see this, that somebody actually picked up an analog device and has written to me. Second of all, I'm going to recommend that you get into a proactive stance and write to your elected officials at least once a month. Here's my promise to you. If you are consistent and do this, within 3 months, the elected official will start calling you when that issue comes up and says, what do you think? Now, I'm going to give you a 4-paragraph format to work with. Now, when you approach these animals, you need to understand there's a dangerous end to them. And you also need to approach them with some level of respect and a little bit of wariness. So in paragraph number 1, what I'm going to tell you to do is very simply this. Do you appreciate them? You may not appreciate the person, you may not appreciate anything else, but maybe you appreciate the fact that they got a tough gig. When animals are going to make a point, they make the point. They don't spend a lot of time dicking around, so here you go. Paragraph number 2, you may actually have to just get very blunt and say, what's really on your mind? When you do this, don't attack people, you attack tactics. Ad hominem attacks will get you nowhere. Paragraph number 3, when animals are attacked or cornered, they will fight to the death. So you have to give them an exit. Most of the time, if they have an exit strategy, they should take it. Obviously, you're intelligent. If you had the right information, you would have done the right thing. Lastly, you want to be the nurturing agent. You're the safe place to come into. So in paragraph number 4, you're going to tell people, if no one is providing you this information, let me help. Animals do displays. They do 2 things. They warn you, or they try to attract you and say, we need to mate. You're going to do that by the way you sign your letter. You do a number of things. You're a vice president. You volunteer. You do something else. Why is this important? Because this establishes the 2 primary criteria for the political creature. That you have influence in a large sphere, and that my preservation depends on you. Here is one very quick hack, especially for the feds in the audience. Here's how you mail your letter. First of all, you send the original to the district office. So you send the copy to the main office. If they follow protocol, they'll pick up the phone and say, hey, do you have the original? Then some droid in the back puts the name on a tickler and says, oh, this is an important letter. And you actually get into the folder that the elected official actually has to read. So what your letter means. I got to tell you, we are all in a party, and political officials are the piñatas. We are harangued, lectured to, sold, marketed, but a letter is actually one of the few times that we have honest communication. I got this letter when I was first elected, and I still carry it to every council meeting I go to. This is an opportunity at real dialogue. And if you have stewardship and want to communicate, that dialogue is incredibly powerful. So when you do that, here's what I can promise. You're going to be the 800-pound gorilla in the forest. Get writing.
So usually we get at least a minute or 2. And that's when you kind of do all the filling in stuff. Sophia? Yeah, because you can finish this as the next person is up. What was your process as you were listening? How did you know where to go, what to put down? You're a very analytical person. How did you figure out how to do this?
I guess I'll just walk you guys through my thinking process. Oh, was the first one. Stop shaking was the second one. You'll be fine. They said passion to stewardship, and I knew, and in my head I knew that was kind of like where they were going, and I was like, well, I think there's something else following that. So I felt that that was sort of an important point. I felt it was important to kind of point out as the texters in the room. If I had more time, I would probably draw in more people, a group of folks. Then he went really fast, and I was like, oh my God, okay, what are the words I'm not going to remember later? And let me get those down first. And so what I heard first was really around reputation and influence and preservation of self, And the topic around that was, you know, what sort of, and I don't know this right now off the top of my head, but I will think about it and I will go back and I will fill in what that sort of what is the title of that category. And I knew it was really about, okay, well, it's great that you're turning passion to stewardship, but how do you get to action? And this is the main point of his talk. So I made it big, I made it blue, I made it different. And then he talked about, let me talk about things that don't work. And for me, in my general sort of capturing style, things that don't work are great lead-ups to, this is what's really important in my talk. So I chose to omit it because it's 8 minutes, and I can only write so fast. And I waited for kind of the punchline, which was that letters work. Kind of capped this particular section off, and then he started talking about the how. So write the letter, which I actually missed, and I went back because I remembered it. And then, but I knew it was pick up a pen, which is the first thing that kind of went through my head as he was talking. And then he talked about write it once a month. So visuals to support what that looks like. They will respond was, I thought, something that was important in terms of this is kind of the outcome that's going to happen, right? And then here's your 4-paragraph format. And then I just took the time to write the list because I thought that it's directional, it's tactical, and it's something that people need to know in detail what they need to do. So do you appreciate them, get blunt, give them an exit. And he also kind of meandered through some storytelling right there. And so I waited for the actual instructional, you know, paragraph that you're supposed to write. Yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Proving to be really challenging. Technically. So Tim, in 30 seconds or less, can you tell us how recording on the iPad is different than recording on paper?
Right. Yeah. I'll get the pen. Yeah, it's different. It's less intuitive, and you got to slow down because you're, you know, I mean, you can learn about writing fast with your arm and keeping it in control, but when you're doing it on that scale, it's different action happening, so you've got to kind of really be slow down to get it right and to get the strokes right and to capture the content. Yeah, what else? I was a bit distracted because the technology wasn't working, and then I missed a whole bunch of the setup while we're trying to figure that out.
What app are you using?
Huh?
What application are you using?
It's called Brushes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's other tools that are.
Let's save our
yeah.
technical questions for the panel, okay, just so we can keep them moving.
Cool.
Okay, great.
Is that it?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. No technical glitches. We're getting there. Thank you, ladies. You can finish this off stage. How do you approach this when you're doing this tandem? How is it different from just standing up there on your own? Do you plan ahead of time what you're going to do? What did you guys go through before you got up on the stage?
First, it's really important to have an agreement with your partner and who's going to focus on content and who's going to focus on details and decoration. Yeah. But more important, both of them has to be alert and looking and at each other and really feeling the chart and what is missing, what is doubling or something like that. For us, it works like a charm. And usually we really have this arrangement, and it's really good if you talk to your partner first.
Thank you so much. We'll continue the conversation at the panel. Thank you so, so much. So these people work in such different ways. Isn't it amazing to watch them? Kelvy, the way you structure this is very different to everyone else. So just in a minute or so, what was your thought process and just how you were going to put this together?
Well, it's amazing when it's so short. You really can't use, God, I can't wait to see the other ones. But, well, he said right off the bat, action to stewardship, so I knew that that was sort of the meta, boom, boom, right there. And I wanted to draw a big line, but I didn't know what was coming. So actually what I would do is, what I will do, is add one here, which is, but it doesn't, I should have done it first, but it's sort of like through that, you get to that. So that was the framing, and then, I don't know, it's 6 minutes, you're just trying to like keep up. So, the other thing is I really, I love the challenge of using the space well. So that's why, like, even though it was 6 minutes, I was trying to find something early on that I could just anchor the two sides of the board with.
Thank you very much.
This is one I would definitely go into Photoshop and color afterwards.
So we're going to get all of the artists up on the stage. Oops, I called you artists. I'm really sorry. Could all of the participants come up on the stage, and we're going to have a little chat with the whole group. And I really encourage all of you to think of the questions that you would like to ask all of these wonderful people. And we'll just take a minute or so to set this up, if you don't mind. Thanks. So I'm going to start with a couple of questions, and then we'll just throw it out to you. And I'm sure this will be very interesting, wonderful, stimulating conversation. I'm going to play off of a question that was asked earlier that wasn't answered. And that was, how do you balance your text and your illustration? You all have different ways of filling up your page. How do you decide? Do you decide that ahead of time? How do you decide how much color, what colors you're going to use, what balance you're going to find in that piece? And maybe just go along and let's see what you have to say.
Hello?
In general. I'm talking in general.
In general,
Yeah.
length of time. So I'll just take this one specifically. It was 8 minutes. 3 colors max, like if 3 colors. And so balancing color, text, and pictures. And so there was the moment where I was like, political zoo animals. Okay, that's a really cool visual. Oh, that's going to take me like 10 minutes to draw. So forget that. And then just really focus on the text and the messaging so that if someone was to come back and look at my chart, at least they knew what we were talking about. And then using the visuals to anchor the story behind it was my approach.
Sorry, can you ask the question again?
How do you decide on the balance that you're going to use?
Oh, picture, yeah. I really only draw pictures when I have to, honestly. And so I mostly also listen for the primary content and how that connects. The connections to me are more important than the pictures, and I only use pictures if it will really help enhance the content, like if it's necessary.
Hello. Well, for me, it's all about the tone of voice, where they are putting more effort to speak about it, to speak up. Then I capture not the feeling, but the sense that they are trying to do. Like they was very critical and talking about animals and politicians. But when we are working together, we have to be very specific. Because if she's writing and I'm drawing or painting, we can't start to argue or have problems there debating about, oh, draw this, draw that. So it's different when I'm working by myself and when working with somebody else. I was waiting for the message. To me, the message was letters, words. So, and how I plan the space, I keep jumping on the page, and listening for things, and then if I time after, I'll fill with color or a flow or a circle or something according to the importance to me at the message, the level of importance to the message. So that's my way.
Great. Can I just ask, Hugh, if you can just touch my screen, it'll take away the titling thing. It's easier to see. But yeah, it's the same thing. It's the messaging. I mean, the TED Talks, the challenge is it's so bloody fast that you really, I mean, we think in pictures and we want to express in pictures. So I'm holding those pictures in my mind, but I don't have time to do it. And you just got to capture the key points to be true to your objective is to capture capturing content. Having that in mind, I have an intention in general when scribing is to have a kind of 50-50 balance to text and image, because that reflects a whole brain engagement. It's what people respond to better, I feel. But keeping in mind that the intention of the visual is just to support the content and not to add or make it too cute or too different just because it's what I feel like, you know. So the visuals I would go in afterwards. In this case, I had a chance to do that 16 or 12 or whatever, 2 times more. Yeah, so keeping it in balance, but the live visual elements that come in that's easy to draw in here is like a line or a bar connecting elements that do help to put things together and give that structure quickly. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Yeah.
I think one of the things I learned is actually really from Anthony and Kelby and really trying to dissect their work online from what I've seen is the whole idea that visuals really encompass all sorts of things, the connectors, the lines, the arrows, especially Kelby's work with her swooshes and all of that, including text and so the balance almost, you start to think about it a little bit more ambiguous because, you know, what is really the visual that's on the board. And so when I think about it, I really think about what is that anchor, the way that Kelby phrased it, what's the anchor that's going to really help create the foundation for your chart or the idea that you're trying to represent.
Great, thank you. I always I'm very conscious of where I'm coming from in a room and what filters I might be using as I listen. And really our job is not to use our filters. We're there to be true to the content that's going on in the room. How do you guys deal with your filters? Because we all have our own perspectives that we bring into a room.
Yeah, sure. I mean, my opinion or experience around that is that that's what we are appreciated for and valued for. We're human. We have a filter, and I think in general, we do have a filter that's somewhat visual and relies on intuition and how do we compose and tell these stories in a way that's going to help people relate back to it as a learning tool or reflection tool or so on. So the filter that comes is there an image that represents this? And is there a way to connect these visually that helps to be true to that story and assist it as a learning tool and a storytelling tool? So my filters is visual and I'm present and I embrace that and I do it. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
I use my presence to feel the needs of the group. So regarding whatever filters I have, it's what they need. I'm always looking for what they need, what is that's important for the group. That's my main focus. For me, it's almost the same. Always are connected with the group and the room. And I do some of a bit reading of the group. So I'm really there and put all my filters aside of me. And I miss the seeing part because I wish I would see this guy talking because the body language for me is very important. And I read the room if they're laughing or they're nodding or they're bored. So I'm always connected with the energy in the room to extract the real message.
So I actually use a lot of filters, and one is archetype, energy of archetypes. It's Jungian, sort of derived from that, of lover, warrior, magician, and sovereign energy. And I try to get a sense of what's strong in the room and what's missing in the room. And if there's low lover energy in the room, then I'll up my lover energy. If there's low sovereign, I up my sovereign. So I try to balance out the room in that way with that filter. And another filter that I use is from David Cantor, who is a family systems therapist, and it's around power, affect, and meaning, 3 different languages of communication. And so I try to, make sure in the room, if there's heavy meaning and people wanting to really understand things conceptually, I know I need to relate in that way, and I might describe differently. If it's a high affect, a lot of feeling in the room, then I'll pay attention to that. And likewise, if those are missing in the room, I'll try to bring in more color if there's low affect in the room. So I use the filtering as more of a balancing technique.
Wow, I'm not that deep. That was awesome, though. I actually think I do a little bit of the second, the David Cantor model. In my work, I just didn't have language around that. I think our experience informs our thinking and informs our mapping, and I think that it's a value add, and I hope that my clients are hiring me for all of that knowledge and experience that came before to help inform and understand the conversation that's happening now. And so those are sort of my filters that I use in my work. And I think the flip side is what I really try to understand is what my natural biases are, so that I can balance against that with the group, so that I am not leaning towards my own natural personal bias. So I stay not neutral to the conversation, but understanding where I am, where the group is, and making sure that I'm managing that sort of line as I record, so that I'm much more reflective than I am. What's it called when you're trying to convince somebody to do something? Persuasive. Thank you.
I'm going to ask one more question, and then I'll put it out to all of you. We all have our own personal challenges when we go to the wall, whether it's our lettering, whether we wish we could draw better, whether it's our bias to listening, a client that is just making you insane, and so you're just not doing a good job anymore because the client is just making your brain not think properly. What's one challenge that each of you deals with or has to deal with, and what do you do to overcome that when you're in the moment at the wall and everyone is watching you and you're going, oh shit, here I am again? Donatella, why don't you start?
Sometimes I struggle with my drawing because I'm not so quick to draw. I need to be faster. And there are always expectations about our drawing. So I use colors instead. And so I am always connected with the room, with the people. If they are sleepy, I put some vibrant colors and big draws, things that they're attractive for them, so they start to reconnect with the content, with the meeting. But for me, it would be drawing faster.
One challenge. Come on.
Well, that's it. And we
Yeah,
keep on
I
having
know.
different challenges. There's that we overcome one, there's that
I was
next
gonna.
one.
I just have to
So-
slip one in, which is just heat. I get so hot when I scribe, so I'm always trying to manage that, but physically. But I think it's just getting out of my own way. The challenge is kind of my somewhat overactive mind, and so listening. I think like really. I mean, I've practiced listening I've been trying to listen well for years, and so my biggest challenge is getting out of my own way. Yeah.
I think my challenge, has anybody seen the Tom Wujek How Do You Draw Toast exercise? Most of it's really about connections, right? You have your nodes and then you have your links. And I think that's where I've tried to evolve in my maps, is really identifying what are the nodes of information, how do you link it together, what's like that meta connection, what is the you know, the ones that are within the meta, so that when you look at a map, you can actually see some sort of flow story or an overarching something or other. And so that's kind of my biggest challenge, is to step in, step out, step in, step out, and then, you know, and then do something with it.
Tim?
I'd say the main challenge is just to be present, fully present in this moment, you know, and it's like life, isn't it? You know, you're more resourceful when you are present. You have more to offer and more to give, and then you're able to access my, you know, the listening and the trusting and that connection and empathy to the group, and then that's where the best work comes. But the challenge in being present is there's so much going on in our minds, the little voice and the judgment, and you know, you might be putting paper up while the person's talking because you don't have enough assistance or the pace or something, and so it's going from you know, busy, full-on beta mode in your mind to like sudden zen. It's like, how do I do that? But I actually find I get quite energized by that challenge because you know, it's like a mindfulness practice, you know, of how do you get out of that and suddenly switch back in. And that's where the best stuff happens. Yeah.
Thank you.
When dealing with difficult clients or difficult venues or something, it gets really strange to do the work, and literally I have to leave the room and give myself a glass of water, sometimes with sugar on it, and calm myself. And I put my recorder on and leave the room for 2-3 minutes, and then I come back. Okay, let's start again.
Thank you so much. Does anyone in the room have any questions that you would like to ask? Come on up to the mics. And it can be to one of these folks, to them as a group, whatever's going to be helpful to you.
I never ask questions, so somehow I'm really taking advantage of it. First of all, I wanted to say that all of you are so effing brave. That's all I could think of when, I mean, yeah. Because even when we're recording at work, you don't have the whole room is not focused on looking at you. We were usually also, you know, looking at the presenter. So just having that much energy beaming at you seemed to be like a huge distraction or something to manage. And so I was wondering what that experience was like how different was this, and the pressure, you know, and the short period of time, which is, you know, sort of for me personally one of my worst nightmares. I like having more time and more space. So I just wanted to hear a little bit about what was this particular experience like, and the difference between this and, you know, your usual work.
No, why doesn't each of you answer one question? I think then we can get all the questions in. Someone want to take it? Don't all jump at once.
Julie? Yes. It was nerve-wracking. That's it. I was shaking. And, okay, where's the message? We call it. Where? It was. Because it's a really special group.
Do you think that I can ask my question because it's directly?
For me, the special thing was be on stage, upper. Because I'm used to be on the same level as everybody. So it was uncomfortable to be up there.
Sorry, you guys.
Oh, no.
Hi.
They deserve the higher status. There's nothing to apologize for. There was a reason you were on stage.
Really quick, fear of failure in front of all of your colleagues and idols. Straight up.
Yeah.
Most terrifying thing in the world. Did I get that right? Oh.
Shall I ask? Hi everyone, my name's Erica, I'm from Toronto, and my question is related actually because I experienced these like full body physical panic attacks, and I was wondering if anybody had experienced something and what your kind of mitigation plan is when you go blind and when you like your legs are shaking and you can't even, you know, like I forget who I am. So, anybody else experience that?
So I do. So this is back to the presencing work.
Can I interrupt you for a second? When I asked Kelly to do this, she was terrified. And she gave me a list of questions, I don't know how long. So we all look at Kelby, and here she is, our superstar, or one of our superstars. And, you know, we all face that thing in however it manifests in us. So now, continue to answer.
That's true. That is entirely true. But then you check it at the door, because it's not about me and how nervous I am. It's about the service that we're doing. So at some point you have to figure out how to ask the questions, get your fear out of the way. So what I use right before I start, if I'm really nervous, is there's this quick check-in I do around from the presencing work around open heart, open mind, open will. Mm-hmm. And if I recognize that I have fear, I know it. So I won't go into too much depth with that, but I check in with like that valve system, and just if I'm, I try to understand the emotion that's going on and then find the positive twist of that. So if it's fear, it's usually, it could translate into an opportunity. So I have to find my way into the opportunity to calm down the fear. So it's just finding the sort of more, the emotion is just a window into sort of the more active device, I guess, that you can, does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Claudia from Poland. When I'm asked, for example, how do I use colors, I'm kind of never know how to answer that, because pretty much I decide really intuitively, and I'm wondering, do you have any like special rules or any ideas of how do you really choose them, and how do you put them together, let's say? So kind of a tool and theory question, let's say, about colors.
Claudia, I like to start with, it was not the case, but I like to start with really calm colors and analog colors. So variations of the tone, like 3 blues, something, and then start adding the reds or pink, something to stand something out. And then when the discussion is really good, I put some bright colors and to reflect the situation. Something that I like to do. If I can add, I like to use complementary colors to that wow effect, especially when the theme is very boring or the guy is talking, but not telling nothing, and we have to extract something from them. I use complementary colors to impact.
So now we know when you actually use bright colors, what were you thinking of us?
I use colors to level up information. So more important information, I just choose one and it goes throughout the entire map so that people can kind of track it. I don't think I'm all that purposeful, but I think if anything, that would be it.
Color gives a structure. You know, it's like a newspaper. You'll have the headline, sub-headline, and you try to have some degree of consistency about what are those key points and how do you represent those, the big ones in red, subheads and something else, and then energy or emotional or higher arching themes might be something else.
Hi, I'm Karen from Arlington, Virginia, and my question is about detail or depth of content. As a social justice advocate myself, I was actually interested in the content of this talk and sketchnoted it. Where I was curious about the decisions people made were in the 4 stages, where I found the first 2 pretty clear, but the second 2 on exit and nurturing, to me those were fairly vague, and even for myself or potentially for others, I felt they needed the next level, the examples, etc. But in general, people didn't do that. So I wondered, how do you decide? Is it based on what you think the audience needs, or your personal thoughts of what was clear versus not clear? How do you decide when to go deep and when to keep it high level?
Well, I guess one constraint or consideration is time, because these are very short, and there's a balance between capturing the key points as he would express it. You know, the first paragraph is done, second is done, third is done, and those are key points, but there's also the story and the examples that he's putting underneath those, which, as you know, as we were hearing in the storytelling session, that's how those pieces become alive and meaningful. And so it's just, it's a balance of listening to those key points and also the underlying story or the human aspect, or, a quote of let me help keep it safe or something, that becomes more meaningful, and I might capture that together with the point, or maybe instead of the key point. So it's like intuitive and feeling kind of a choice. Yeah, that judges that.
To me, it's how passionate or stress the concept is. The keynote is really passionate about it. I'll go deeper.
I did clarity. If I think he said nurturing, or the
Nurturing
third points were a little bit vague, and then he kind of meandered a little bit. I think I actually added a tactics, and then something else like a supporting detail. And for me, it was just clarity. I was thinking if I went back and I looked at nurturing, I would have no idea what that meant. So that's kind of how I made that decision in the moment.
For me, it's the audience and what they need.
Hi, my name is Deborah. I'm from Abu Dhabi. And my question is about how do you listen, but more importantly, how do you teach yourself to listen? Because we all know that we can sit there and practice with TED Talks. But, for example, Kelvy, I had the impression there was something deeper going on, for example, when you were working. So how could I teach myself to listen better?
Have a conversation with Dean. Where's Dean? We had a great conversation the other day around the notes and the space between the notes. So I think on one level there's listening to the notes, which are the words, and then it goes from there. So every single conversation you have, everything you hear, is an opportunity to listen. If you're outside with the birds and the traffic, that's an opportunity to listen. If you're talking with somebody at the break, if you find yourself, like I'm very nervous generally, so I end up talking a lot. But the conscious act of attending to what's there and not just what's in here, shifting your attention from the interior focal point to your range of attention tearing out, and then that's how you expand your listening, I think.
So I'm totally analytic, which is why I think I really love to teach and train and stuff. So I'm gonna try to break down what I saw in Kelvy, which is something that I was like, oh my God, this is something I just can't do right now, but I would strive to do. And the biggest thing that I saw was she just waited. She let it sit, and she was listening, and like I almost saw like these bubbles across her head trying to figure out where like all the bigger sort of connections were happening. And I think that sometimes when we do our work, we're listening and we get in the weeds on what all the details and the pictures and the things look like, that we forget to step back and sit into that space and just wait for it. Like, just wait for what that bigger meaning is, if that's your choice. If you choose that I want to go bigger and bigger picture, and I don't want to capture all that content because that serves the group, like, you have to give yourself permission to just wait it out. Like, just, it's okay, right? As a practice.
And just adding on that, I mean, one thing that I was taught is wait for the gem. The gem will be given to you, and then you'll also hear it in a different way, and that will instruct how you want to put it. Do you put it as a point? Do you put it as a context underneath? How does it resonate? In where do I feel it? And is it a pain point? Is it like the theme of this? And I'll capture it on a post-it if it sounds like the bigger picture, the bigger theme, and I'll just hold on to that piece. I know it's going to go somewhere, and then I might wait till the end, and then it sort of becomes a thread that weaves through, or a foundation or something. But that's listening and just being patient and waiting for that until I feel really how that hits me, and then that will instruct me how to use it.
It's interesting that you keep touching on something that doesn't talk about.
Well, that's the that's the challenge with doing the digitals, because there's so much we access in the movement. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. The challenge in doing this little space, there's so much that we can access kinesthetically and through the movement, and that will guide what's the feeling and how do I express that. But on the little tablet, you're doing this. So, yeah.
I just want to add one thing, which is holding capacity. So some of it is actually the practice of listening, but some of it is just the breadth of your ability to hear something and not have the urge to express it right away. And that just I mean, that's a trust thing. That is something that takes time and developing. And again, you can practice with everything, but it's a holding. I describe it as a holding capacity.
My name's Emily Jane. I think my question is sort of the zoomed out version of that in terms of how you cultivate the patience with finding your own style, because each of you had a very unique style that obviously has come out of years. And as somebody who's quite new to this, how much time did you give yourselves to find what is me copying and trying to learn and build a vocabulary and know kind of the tips and the tricks, and then where my style actually emerges? If you could just speak, any of you, to how that was for you.
I'm 10 years in and I'm still evolving. Like there's some days you'll look and you'll be like, oh my God, Anthony? Or Michelle? And I'm just constantly looking and trying. And if you look at my first David Sibbitt piece, I totally nuddled it. I went to juice it up. I was like, I'm going to try everything that Jim and Greg have taught me. That Gershwin, I forgot what the verb for that one for Greg was. But and so I think when we stop evolving is when we stop getting good. Like it's you just keep going, I think.
For me, it's the same. I'm trying all different things and different styles because we're always learning, right? So it's a process, and sometimes I pick a tab and try 5, 6 different ways to do it. And so I will start thinking, what works better for me? I'm comfortable to do this or that. So it's trying all the time.
Let's have one last question, so we still have time to hear from Sam.
Hi, this is Malte from Germany. And my question is, you read now and then in interviews with rock stars that when they finish their gig and go back to the hotel room, they have this like energy drop, yeah? And of course we people are not rock stars, but we may have, well, kind of, at least we do have like a similar role by losing ourselves or giving ourselves away for a while and just being like the channel, the energies of all people are running through for a while. And that is one thing I love about this job. And how do you deal with that moment when the gig is over and the visuals are done and everybody said, hey, you did great work, and everybody went home, and you're in that hotel room or in your car back home or wherever, and this energy goes down again and you go back into your own body or role or really just you again? How do you deal with that? What do you do with that energy that is still left?
Well, when I'm back in my car, I put some loud music and I start to sing. I sing poorly, but I start to sing out loud to relax. And when I get home, sometimes I can get a message or acupuncture or something like that. But I usually watch cartoons to relax. and get my mind in other places.
Yeah, so I'm on level XXX of Candy Crush. And I've watched this entire series of Alias in the past 2 weeks, I think. But I think there's one response which is like a collapse, where I'm really too exhausted to do anything, which is where I go into the, just really doing whatever's necessary to take care, like sleep, massage, do whatever to sort of, but then I've been trying to be a little more intentional about the emptying process, so that's why I've been writing a lot more as a way to reflect, like to build in my own reflection and learning after each session. So I've been writing and trying to just let it go intentionally and then play Candy Crush.
All right, I'm going to stop us because I want to be sure to hear from Sam, and we're due to be down for lunch in less than 10 minutes. If there are more questions, David had a question? Uh-oh.
I have a question, but I don't need an answer.
Okay, go for it.
The question is, if you were musicians, what kind of music are you playing? No, you don't have to answer.
Thank you so much, our reporters. I don't know if you've been watching Sam diligently scribbling away here. Well, this is not scribble, sorry. Had time to make his beautiful title. Sam, tell us what you went through. What's the difference between listening to a panel and listening to one person speak? And how do you figure out how you're going to lay all that out?
Hi, everybody. That was an amazing presentation. And thank you very much for the opportunity to do the scribing for this. It was very exciting. And of course, like many people, when we're working, I like to listen on two different levels. And one is the level of it's just coming through and it's going out and non-attachment to the content. But for this panel, of course, it's very close to my heart. And so I'd be like, oh yeah, that's a good point. And I would sit with it for a little bit. So it is very different working in front of this particular group of people. And it's also nerve-wracking. And I wanted to acknowledge all of the new people that have done it so far. Okay, so what I wanted to do was get into the head on this side and the outputs on that side, and it sort of worked. I would clean this up a little bit, because I was listening for the active verbs in the middle. So people described what they had done, like color and text, tone of voice, and getting the message first, and then shifting to what they did to achieve that, such as limiting the palate, really creating a tandem relationship. And the words that came through, and I heard them more than once, about holding, staying in balance, anchoring, serving, waiting, stepping in, connecting, and fully being present. And so that was the shift. And if I was really more planned, I would have done it with the colors properly, going from green all the way across in a more clear way. So I can see how this would be improved, but that's okay.
Thank you, Sarah, for leading us through that session. That was awesome.